Welcome to the Quantum Business Briefs podcast, a production of the Quantum Franchise Group. This is your podcast for bringing the dream of business ownership to life. And now here's your host, William Huffine.
Well, hello, family. I'm William Huffine. I am your host today here on the Quantum Business Briefs podcast or vodcast if you're watching it on YouTube. I'm the founder of the Quantum Business Community and the president of Quantum Franchise Group. And this episode today is part of our series that we call Franchise Fridays, where we focus on one specific company in a specific industry that might just be the exact fit that you're looking for to make the dream of business ownership become a reality. So again, thank you for being here. Make yourself comfortable. We're going to go ahead and jump right into today's episode. All right, so I am super excited to have with me today on this, actually our pilot episode. This is our first episode ever for the YouTube channel, for the podcast. And I do not think, at least from our initial conversation pre-roll, I do not think I could have chosen a better candidate for our pilot edition. So I think you're going to enjoy this interview. I'm going to be speaking today with Mr. Albert Hermans. He is the Vice President of Franchise Development for Floor Coverings International. Albert, happy to have you with me today. Thank you.
William, it's a great Tuesday here in the summer to be spending on a podcast with you. I'm excited.
Yeah, fantastic. The only thing that would make it better is if we were shooting this out on a lake somewhere on a boat or something like that.
And maybe if it was the Friday or Saturday, but it'll do good for a Tuesday. Yeah, we'll do good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with me and be here with our audience and introduce your company. I'd like for you to just begin by telling us a little bit about your brand, the product and the service that you provide. Introduce us to Floor Coverings International.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do that. I've been with the brand for almost 9 years now, and it's exciting time for us because we're at kind of this inflection point, the crest of the hockey stick, as it were. We're 250 locations strong, owned by a publicly traded organization called First Service. So First Service is the parent company of some household name brands in the world of franchising. I mean, you've probably heard of CertaPro Painters. Listeners have probably heard of Paul Davis Restoration, California Closets. Well, Floor Coverings International is the youngest brand in the portfolio, and we bring a boutique turnkey experience into the flooring industry. So the parent company is known for building household name brands in a couple of home different services industries, and they bought Floor Coverings International because of the industry. So the flooring industry is actually pretty interesting. I mean, before I joined this organization, I thought flooring and flooring sales and remodeling was like, dusty old carpet salesman with a little book in the back of his trunk. But
right.
Come to find that the flooring industry is actually the largest interior remodeling industry that there is. It's more dollars and cents get spent on flooring because it's not DIY, and there's a large material component to what we do. And not to mention, every time there's a fire or a flood or a dishwasher that breaks, insurance companies pay for a lot of flooring. So there's a ton of flooring work to do, and the industry is extremely fragmented. So the top 50 flooring companies in North America only make up a whopping 10% market share, believe it or not. Right. So, and that would include, you want to take a guess at who number 1 and 2 is in the flooring industry?
Not even going to embarrass myself by guessing.
Well, you're not going to be shocked. It's Home Depot and Lowe's.
Oh, well, of course. Okay.
Right. So Home Depot and Lowe's are number 1 and 2. And the top 50, which would obviously include Home Depot and Lowe's, they only make up 10%. So the industry is a locally owned mom and pop retail presence showroom. Okay. And then the last thing you need to know about the industry, so I could tell you what makes us so great, is the industry is female dominated, meaning our wives, the female homeowner, they make the exclusive purchasing decision in the flooring world 70% of the time.
Okay. However,
when you close your eyes and think of operating a business or being in the flooring industry, you don't picture Sephora, right?
Right.
What I talked about before, which is like dusty old, carpet guy with ripped jeans. So when the parent company bought the brand back in the early 2000s, they did so with wanting to model a business around the core consumer.
Okay.
So a couple of core things we do different, and I know, William, I'm talking on and on, but I wanted to at least set the table for what the industry is so that you can really appreciate what we do that's different. The first one is we create a shop at home experience in what is traditionally a retail industry. So our franchise owners and then their sales teams go to market with what we call the mobile flooring showroom. It's a vehicle that's designed and outfitted for over 3,000 product SKUs that they take to Mrs. Jones's house. So she could shop in the lighting of her own home, next to the furniture, next to the walls. But also she's got an advisor there that can coach her and give feedback around, hey, you've got 2 dogs or young kids or a sliding glass door that goes to a pool. Right? Here's the right application recommendation, which she's not getting in a retail environment.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. 100%. I was, as you were describing this, I was having flashbacks to the early 1990s when I was poor, had no money, bought my first place, nasty old raggedy old place. The floors were disgusting and I had to recarpet the whole place. And I remember walking into this old downtown dusty, dirty carpet place, just like you're explaining. The guy had spaghetti sauce on his shirt. I mean, it was so it's good to hear that you guys have come so far in the industry.
Yeah, exactly. And so that the first, real big differentiator, like you mentioned, is that buying experience, right? You don't have to go back and forth to the store, not really knowing how to describe what you're looking for to the person. Like, we're going to be there in your home. The next thing that's really interesting is the flooring industry and home improvement in general is known for just not the best of all experiences. Nobody jumps for joy when it's time to get work done in their house. You kind of expect the worst. You're expecting poor communication, promises undelivered. And one of the things that I'm really proud of as it relates to our brand is Floor Coverings International is the #1 rated flooring company in North America by something called Net Promoter Score, which is a way to measure customer service satisfaction. And it's because of the same reasons why Chick-fil-A is Chick-fil-A versus KFC, and why Starbucks is Starbucks versus 7-Eleven, and why people drop 20 grand to go to Disney where they could spend, less than $1,000 and go to Six Flags.
Right.
It's the attention to all of the customer experience items that go along with our product and service, which is the selling and installation of flooring. So timeliness, cleanliness, communication. We build all of our technology around this great customer experience and communicating every step of the process to the core consumer. So that's a real big one for us. And then lastly, William, and then I'll kind of pause here because I've gotten myself excited, is our franchise owners, because of the fact that we're part of a publicly traded organization and we grow as fast as we do year over year, they have the ability to purchase their materials. So like the carpet, the hardwood, the luxury vinyl, the tile, they buy that straight from the manufacturer.
Okay.
As opposed to if they were a locally owned flooring store, they'd have to buy through localized distribution. So effectively, our pricing is on the same tier as Home Depot and Lowe's.
Okay.
So the purchasing power, the customer experience, the way that we provide the shopping experience in the home, this is how we're completely changing the way that the flooring industry does business.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I know you mentioned this earlier, the acquisition of the company. When did that happen?
Early 2005, 2006. So we bought the brand in 2005, took control and started to make changes in 2006.
And have you been franchising from the beginning, or when did you start franchising?
Yeah, so we've been franchised. So the parent company, or sorry, not the parent company, the original ownership was franchising since the late 80s. So we've been franchising for a long, long time.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Now, tell me again the number of units you have right now. You mentioned it earlier.
So 250 individual franchise locations.
Okay. And how has that been trending over the last 2 or 3 years?
So 2 or 3 years, we've seen a boom. For many years, I've been around for like I said, almost 9 years here at Floor Coverings. We were refining our model, making sure we had it right, making sure then we also had the systems and training support mechanisms, making sure we had the right technology so that we can put our foot on the gas with confidence in terms of adding locations. And so in the last 3 years, we've doubled in size in the last 3 years. Yeah, and certainly we're continuing that trajectory for the next 2 years or so when we'll have most markets in North America saturated.
Wow, that's very impressive. Do you have a projection on the number of units you plan on opening this year, 2023?
Yeah, so this year we'll put 80 businesses through training.
80. Wow.
Yeah. Now some of which are resales,
Sure.
but 80 new franchisees will be in business this year.
Yeah. Wow. Very impressive.
Yeah.
So, one of the first things that is always on a potential franchisee's mind is money, both on the investment side and on the income side. We'll get to the investment side in just a little bit. We'll wrap up with that. But right now, I want to talk a little bit about what's called, and I want to direct this conversation to our listeners here to give you a little bit of background on what this is, because we may be using some language here that you're not familiar with at this stage of exploring franchising. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what's called an item 19. Now, an item 19 is a section in a larger document, a very large document called a franchise disclosure document. Now, those of you who are not familiar with the franchising world, a franchise disclosure document is required by the Federal Trade Commission. Every franchise system has to publish a franchise disclosure document and provide that to their aspiring franchise owners. And it's a legal document with a whole lot of legal stuff in it. But one of the sections in there is an item 19. Now, the item 19 shares financial performance numbers for some of the franchise owners in the system. And I do want to preface this by saying franchisors they are required to provide you with a franchise disclosure document, but they are not required to include an item 19 in there. And there's some debate on this, but if a franchisor does not provide an item 19, that could be a little bit of a yellow light for you to kind of step back and say, okay, why? And maybe push a little bit more on that. But we're talking to a company here that does provide their item 19, and they're willing to talk about it with us here. I want to make also one other statement for those of you who are unfamiliar with this world. Both franchisors and people like myself, franchise consultants, franchise brokers, we're really kind of prohibited by the Federal Trade Commission when it comes to making promises, projections, guarantees, statements of certainty about your personal income potential, your unit's financial performance. We're prohibited by the FTC from doing that, but also it's really difficult for us to do that anyway, even if we were not prohibited, because we don't know what you're going to bring to the business. We don't know what your business approach is going to be, how much time, energy, effort, focus you're going to put into your business. So much of your earning potential, both on the gross side and on the net side, comes down to you, the business owner, and your discipline in generating clients, but also your discipline and expense control. So I wanted to make sure that I set the table for this conversation as Albert discusses with us the item 19 performance that they do make available to their potential franchisors. So it's all yours, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great explanation what the item 19 is. And I think that, the item 19 is a starting point. And then, if you're investigating franchise opportunities, this is kind of like the gut check. Okay, lick your finger and put it up to the wind. Hey, does it seem like the wind's blowing in the right direction? And then certainly you want to dig deeper into this data by speaking to franchise owners. And that's when you could really learn about net income and potential and things of that nature. But yeah, we like I said, we've been franchising for almost 30 years. So certainly we've got the data, the history, the track record, 250 locations to provide a really strong item 19. And one of the things that prospective franchise owners will find in our item 19 is a table that takes our franchise owners and it puts them into subsets of performance. So we have our top 10%, top 25%, top 50%. And for us, the place I like to start, and you might think that I want to start with the top 10%. Let me tell you what the best people are doing. But I actually like to start at the top 50% because, when you're making an investment decision, you don't necessarily want to say, what if I'm in the top 10%? You want to know what's a kind of a reasonable place for me to start. On top of that, for us, we've been franchising for so long. And like I'd mentioned, we've had so many franchise owners come in under what our previous model was, which our previous model, I know we're going to talk about the business and what we're looking for in an operator, but the previous model that the first company that owned us had was more so of an owner operator model. You buy yourself a job essentially, and no employees, no scaling, no spending money on marketing. So for us, I think the good place to start knowing all this information is the top 50% to give you a prudent kind of revenue potential idea. Top 50% of our franchise owners average at $1.7 million in gross sales.
Wow.
And then it obviously goes up from there. Top 25% is 2.4 million. Top 10% is 3.5 million. So, as it relates to the ideal candidate, what we're looking for is we're looking for somebody who gets excited by those numbers and says, yeah, I want to build a large multi-million-dollar scaled staffed business. And the item 19 proves that it's certainly the case.
Yeah, fantastic. Those are good numbers. So, and if any of our listeners do decide to make an introduction with the company here, you will get that FDD in your hands. You'll be able to see that in more detail. So, talk to me a little bit about something else that a lot of folks wonder about when we're having these conversations is passive potential. Owner operator, semi-passive, fully passive. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So let me just start with this. Organizationally, we want to build multi-million-dollar businesses.
Yep.
And the reason why is because the multi-million-dollar franchisee has equity, lifestyle, flexibility, and they make pretty good money. What that also does for us organizationally is we have a couple hundred locations doing multi-million dollars each, is the brand becomes recognizable to the end consumer. Right. And that helps me on a local level, if I was a franchise owner, to be able to more easily acquire customers and have familiarity in my marketplace and increase my equity value. So I'm saying all that because we know the formula, and the formula starts with somebody coming into the business full time. So we want somebody that is ready to kind of take control of their destiny, take control of their lifestyle, and invest in a business to get off the ground. So in the short term, in the beginning, this is the person that wants to come in and be in it full time. But again, the purpose of scaling is to be able to build that team of 3 to 5 employees, have your subcontracted crews doing the work, so that then you have a ton of flexibility. So it's not necessarily the passive on the front end. We know in order to build a multi-million-dollar business, not a side hustle, but a big business, you got to be in it in the beginning. And then over time, scale it so that it can be something that's maybe less time consuming and allow you to be on vacations and things like that. Yeah,
100%. And this is a good segue into a day in the life, and kind of walk us through what a day in the life of a Floor Coverings International franchisee is like.
So our most passionate and kind of our best performing, happiest franchise owners, the thing that gets them juiced up in the morning is that we're helping people transform their homes. So think about like that on HGTV when the person walks back into their home. You have to wait the whole episode, 27 minutes to get to that point that everybody wants to see the finished product and the look on the customer, the homeowner's face. Like that's what we do every day out in the field. So how does the franchise owner get that, and what are they doing? They're starting their day usually with a team meeting, all hands, making sure all the installations that are going out and appointments that are being set, things of that nature, they're all coordinated properly. They will have an office manager on their staff to do a lot of that work, but certainly the coordination and the all hands is important. Leading that meeting. Then throughout the day, they're either doing a mix of job site check-ins for jobs that are in progress, checking in with the customer, making sure they're happy, making sure the crews are doing the right thing in the field, but also maybe doing a customer consultation or creating a connection in their community, grabbing coffee with a real estate agent or a builder or a general contractor, because those are all great referral sources for our business owners. Doing what we call a ride along or a buddy estimate with one of their salespeople as they sit side by side with them, make sure that they're treating the customers right, going through the sales process properly, using the technology properly. So the role of the owner very much is in a leadership capacity and leading the folks that are, again, doing the installations, doing the sales, and then obviously being their face in their business and their community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So your ideal candidate, we talked a little bit about this, someone who's really ready to jump in there and, get this business built and scaled. But in terms of, personality, work and leadership style, cultural fit, anything you'd like to share there?
So it has to start with the franchise owner has had to have had the opportunity or gets charged up in their career when they've hired and fired and built teams, building culture. They love not just doing it all for themselves, but if they see one of their direct reports have success, that gives them juice. That's a really great quality. It's something that makes a good match for us. Throwing the Christmas party at the end of the year, if that gets you excited to do that for your staff, like that's the type of person that does well in our business. So leadership skills are paramount. As far as culture goes, we tend to be a work hard, play hard company, and that's a bit cliche, but we build household name brands. There's hard work and sweat that goes behind that. We're not afraid to do that, but at the same time, at the day's over and you want to throw the holiday Christmas party, or you want to go with your team to grab a meal, or you're at a training of ours and we're going to go bowling or top golf or play cornhole, that's really important to us as well. So, ultimately, though, the operator is hired and fired, wants to be forward facing, wants to be face of their business. But in terms of background, you'd be surprised, William. We've got people that are chemical engineers, that are engineers, that are in sales, that are in operations. But the common thread they've all had in their career is they've led the teams.
Yeah. And this is something that I hear in almost every conversation that I have with a potential franchisor, regardless of what industry we're talking about. They want to own a franchise. They're interested in the industry, and we'll just use yours for an example here. You'll have a candidate say, I love everything I'm hearing about Floor Coverings International. Sounds like an awesome place. And, Albert's a handsome guy, very articulate and smart. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in a company with this guy? But I have no clue how to lay a stitch of carpeting in a house. I pay people to do that stuff. I pay people to change light bulbs in my house. I can't fix stuff. And what I have to, in my role, what I explain to people is, most of these companies, they're not looking necessarily for the person who knows how to lay the carpet. They're looking for the person who knows how to build a business and find the people who do an excellent job of laying the carpet. Would you say that that's a true statement for your company?
Absolutely the truth. Yeah. I mean, what we do is we bring people with white collar skills into a blue collar industry. And that makes all the difference. Right off the bat, you're different than the competition. So that's the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the two things here. Let's start with the training. Walk us through the training that a new franchisee is going to receive with your company.
Yeah, so this is in my role, I'm responsible for bringing people into the organization that are good fits. And, this allows me to sleep really well at night because the training is just otherworldly in terms of the way that it's laid out and then the hours. So we're believers in the fact that people need to learn what they need to learn when they need to learn it. So there's no sense in having a training program where we're teaching you all the things you need to do when you hire your first salesperson right as you're opening your doors, because you're not hiring your first salesperson as you open your doors. So we want to make sure that your training happens when you need to learn it. So the training's chopped up into a couple different phases. The first phase is, immediately after signing your franchise agreement, our training team will get with you and we do your onboarding checklist alongside of you. So all the little things like business checking account, vehicle leases, it's just more logistical checklist type items that aren't necessarily training, but if you've never done it before, you might need some assistance. So get your business ready to be open. Then you enter into what we call our boot camp period of learning, where you're going to come to Atlanta for 3 days. We're going to teach you the ins and outs of what you asked before. Can you put hardwood on top of this? Can you, do you nail it? Do you glue it? Like the industry type stuff. Teach you how to use our technology and estimate. Then after that 3 days in Atlanta, you're in a distance learning period for about 2 months of weekly webinars and e-learning platform, things that you'll need to be doing to learn the industry, learn the sales process. And then the week before you launch, you come to what we call your launch training, appropriately named, where we tie all the learnings together, do it in a real life environment. We rent an Airbnb so that you understand that, what it's like to be in the home, really set the table so that when you get back to your marketplace and your business is open, it's not the first time you would have done an in-home consultation or been in a flooring environment in somebody else's home. Then once you launch, we've got a defined training program that follows that franchise owner for the first 2 years that they're in business. So it's not, we're not the organization that puts you through that initial training, hands you the textbook and says, all right, call me when you need something. We're very much following that curriculum all the way through for the big milestones in those first 2 years. It's kind of when you need the most, you're most vulnerable in your first 2 years in business. There's the most to learn. And so we've got a dedicated team that just focuses on that first 2 year learning curve.
Yeah, that's great. Great training program. Atlanta, great city. One of my favorite cities. Right. But okay, wonderful. So another thing that folks often ask about is, well, when I'm talking with aspiring business owners, one of the questions I get asked is, why go with a franchise instead of just starting my own floor coverings business? And I always explain to folks that, with a franchise, you're basically getting a business in a box. The brand is already established. The name recognition is already established. The systems have been proven and, tried and proven. And, the franchisor is just handing you this business. Things that if you were to do this independently all on your own, you're going to be piecing it together. And it's going to be far more time consuming and far more expensive to piece your business together versus getting the business in the box from the franchisor. So we've talked about the training. We've talked about the incredible brand. What else is in that box? What kind of ongoing support, aside from training, what kind of ongoing support do your franchisees get in your system?
So all of our franchise owners get assigned a business coach. They get assigned cohort groups to do work with. But I think, where we do really well in terms of, okay, you pay a royalty to be part of a franchise owner, what do you get for that royalty? I like to think of 4 letters, BBBN. So you got brand, we talked about before. So our marketing team's engaging with making sure that we're cutting edge in terms of online lead generation, and our brand is really well positioned to face the consumer. You have baselines is the second B. So this is a big one that I think is a little bit underrated, because if you went to go, you talked to me and you love the flooring industry, but for whatever reason you didn't like me, and you went to go start your own flooring business, and you were unsure if you were optimizing your P&L. Like, if you're an independent flooring company, you can't go knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, you want to compare and contrast P&Ls, right? Mm-hmm. But in a franchise organization, the entire network, and we've got 250 operators, we're operating on the same chart of accounts, and we openly share financial information. So I can quickly look to see if my gross margin is good or not good based upon the system average. Then I know where I need to spend effort and intention in making my business better. So baselines is another big one, right? When you've got a data-driven big network, baselines is going to help you as a business owner identify how to get better faster. Mm-hmm. Then there's better practices, which pretty obvious what that is, but we believe that our role as the franchisor is to disseminate better practices from the field.
Yeah.
And that leads me into that last letter, that N, which is network. And this is another one of the underrated elements. When somebody buys a franchise, they tend to think, what training am I going to get? What support am I going to get? And that get is coming from the franchisor. Mm-hmm. I encourage anybody investigating a franchise opportunity to also get and see what they're going to get from their peers in the network.
100%.
Right? That actually is where your best learning takes place, because for your initial training, you really like the franchisor, and then after time passes, you're like, you know what? I appreciate what they're telling me, but they're not out in the field like me every day. I'd rather call somebody who's doing what I do every day. So mm-hmm. that culture of the network is honestly where our brand shines brightest. Mm-hmm. I just got back from Cleveland. We supported this meeting, 50 franchise owners. We supported it and helped pay for some of the cost to put this meeting on, but there was 0 corporate team members at the front of the room facilitating. It was peer-to-peer led.
Wow.
And the franchise owner got so much value out of that session.
Yeah.
Because they were learning from each other. And it's our job as a corporate team, not only to share better practices and certainly provide the model, but provide a great welcoming and team oriented environment where business owners feel comfortable roundtabling and sharing with each other. That's how you get a ton of value out of your royalty dollar.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Not too many years ago, I was a franchise owner in a different industry than what we're talking about here. But I remember when I went for my live training at the headquarters, there were probably 25 other brand new franchise owners in that classroom with us that week that we were together. And sure, the textbook training and all of that was great, but the friendships that came out of that training lasted for years. And I, just like you said, I got so much value out of the friendships and the working relationships and the peer-to-peer stuff that absolutely couldn't agree with you more. So that's good. Well, we're gonna bring this thing home to the garage here and talk about financials again, but now we're going to talk about financials on the investment side. Sure. And again, I just want to speak to the listeners and the viewers here. If you're new to this world of franchising, typically when we're talking about a franchise investment, we're talking about three components. We're talking about actually four. We're talking about a franchise fee that is paid upfront that grants you access to the brand, that gets you the business in the box. Then we're talking about additional expenses involved with supplies, equipment. If you're in a brick and mortar, we're talking about build out, we're talking about property leases, all of that. We're also talking about initial months operating capital. And it's going to be very smart of you to have 3 to 6 months, maybe even more, of operating capital as you ramp up your business. And then the fourth part of this is the royalty, the ongoing royalty that is paid to the franchisor. So when you're exploring franchise opportunities and you see an investment range, that is everything kind of lumped in together. That's everything that I just described, in an average range. So, Albert, let's talk a little bit about the investment with your brand.
Yeah, and I love the way you laid that out, because I lay it out the same way with anybody I speak with. So, you could find a range online depending on what website you go to and how old the article is, anywhere from like $150,000 to $300,000 on what somebody could invest in our business. I'll shoot you straight. The right number for folks coming into our business is roughly $230,000, $240,000, and there's three components, like you articulated. There's the franchise fee, the hard assets, and then the working capital. Which the working capital, I'll as I explain this, that we've got two subsets of working capital. But so the franchise fee for us is for 2 territories. So again, we want operators that want to build a multi-million-dollar business. That's a 2 territory operation. We will do a 1 territory type of deal with a prospective franchisee if they're in maybe like a very rural market like Cheyenne, Wyoming, or Fargo, North Dakota, where it doesn't support 2 territories, and you might have to be comfortable with not as quick of a ramp up, but we still have opportunity there. There's still floors getting done in those DMAs, right? But the kind of the dense major market metro area DMAs, if you want to build a multi-million-dollar business, we're not going to sit here and sell you 3, 4, 5, 6. The right number is 2. So it's $90,000 a franchise fee for 2. Then there's roughly $55,000 of just hard assets between the vehicle wrap, the getting that lease off the ground, the product samples, the technology, tablets, laptops, pop-up displays for trade shows. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and we package it all up and ship it all out to the franchise owner. That's roughly $55,000. And then the balance of the investment, call it another 80 or 90 or so, is working capital. And the part of that working capital is earmarked, like you had said, for the first couple months, so you get the cash flow positivity. But the other part of that working capital, we want people having dollars set aside for marketing.
Yeah.
Right. Because, some franchise brands will tell you, well, yeah, if you ask how much you spend on marketing, they'll tell you, oh, it's a percentage of sales from the beginning. Well, in your first month and you've generated this $0 in sales, what's the percentage of $0? Right. So we say, hey, come into the business with your full first year's marketing spend in the kitty. Mm-hmm. That way you've got sufficient working capital to focus on scale.
Yeah.
So that's what's included in the investment.
Okay, great. And it's fascinating to hear that you really focus on the 2-pack on the territory there. So that makes sense. It's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, I think we've covered all the bases here. I'm going to let you anything that we missed, anything that we need to make sure that our viewers and listeners hear from you before we push the pause button on this.
Well, William, I touched on it in the beginning, but I just want to put the exclamation mark on this. Floor Coverings International as a brand is tipping. We've got 23 marketplaces right now where we formed cooperatives, which is a group of franchise owners that pool a portion of their marketing budget together. And then we kick in funds as well to do TV, radio, and more brand building activities. We are buying materials in the same tier as Home Depot and Lowe's. We're starting to become the household name brand in the flooring industry, just like we've done at California Closet and CertaPro Painters. We're just following that blueprint, and we're doing it in a bigger industry. So for somebody looking at this brand right now, I'd say now is the time to jump in to ride that hockey stick growth, because it's happening right now. And certainly if you're at least peaked a little bit, if you don't act quickly, the way that we're adding new franchise owners into the organization, your territory in your backyard might be scooped up sometime soon. So it's just a super exciting time. Everybody, when they think of the word franchising, they think of all the things we talked about in this podcast, but certainly they also think about my Super Bowl commercial and the brand and things like that. And so it's really exciting to be able to say that stuff is happening right now at Floor Coverings International, and we're becoming a household name brand in the flooring industry. It's a ton of fun right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it makes me want to go out and buy a franchise. I mean, it's very cool. And when people think about franchising, they first start thinking about it. It seems people always just think about food. I want a McDonald's or I want a Chick-fil-A or they think food. They don't realize that. I mean, my franchise brokerage focuses on 39 different industries, and there's so many different options out there for people to get into franchise ownership. And it's exciting to see a brand like yours really dominating in the home improvement category. So, Albert, man, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you taking time to be here and visit with our listeners and our viewers. And man, thanks much. Wish you much success in the year ahead. And I hope we can send some folks your way and make some introductions.
Absolutely. That'd be great. Thanks, William. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Quantum Business Briefs. I want to wrap up just by telling you a little bit about our sponsor, Quantum Franchise Group. We are a full-service franchise brokerage, and much the same way that a real estate brokerage helps an aspiring homeowner to find the perfect home, we help aspiring business owners or even experienced business owners to find the perfect franchise opportunity. We take an integrity-first approach. We are not in the sales business. We are in the relationship business, and we're committed to putting your needs first and helping you find the opportunity that is the absolute best fit for you. So if you'd like to connect, we'd love to work with you. Everything that we do at no cost to you. You can learn more about us at quantumfranchisegroup.com, or you can simply text the word freedom to 815-885-5475, and that'll begin an initial conversation. Thanks again for being here today. I hope you have an amazing today, an amazing tomorrow, and an even better day after that. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Quantum Business Briefs podcast. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, text the word podcast to 815-885-5475. We'll see you next time, but for now, be well, do good, and make it an amazing day. Bye.